Hello everybody. Today we at Guidance IAS are going to conduct a session on geography question and answers. The questions which were there in mains 2021 conducted last month. The purpose of this session is to help you understand some of the concepts of answer writing. The main purpose is to help you understand the structuring, how you should structure your answers. Then the second thing, the relevant content that you should be writing in your answers. And the third thing is the tricks. When we talk about the content, most of the people, they think it as a GS paper. Yes, it's a GS paper, but they tend to write very general answers. General answers as equivalent to some arts paper. Okay, but there are certain things which should be included in your answers that will make your content rich and help you fetch good marks. You can always make your answers objective. Most of the students tend to write subjective answers. We will see while discussing the questions how people tend to write subjective answers and how you can make your answers objective by adding relevant examples, by adding case studies, by adding some or the other Supreme Court cases and all. Then the third thing, as I said, the tricks. Most of the time, what happens is while writing your mains paper, some or the other question will be such tricky that you won't be having any content in writing those answers. But we will see with the help of the questions of the mains itself, how you can approach that particular question and write relevant answers with good content. So without wasting time, I'll move on to the questions. Now, one thing I'll like to clear that most of the people will think that the paper is over and you're sitting at home and you could have written much better answer. You think that discussing these questions sitting at home is quite easy, but you have to practice answer writing right from the start of your preparation. If you're practicing answer writing with proper approach right from the start of your preparation, then and then only you will be able to write good answers in your mains exam with good content. So the purpose is to help you in writing good answers. So let's move on to the questions part. All of you would have seen the paper. There were total 9 questions from the geography section. The first 4 questions, question number 4 to question number 8, these 5 questions were of 10 marks each, and the remaining 4 questions, question number 14 to 17, were of 15 marks each. So you look at the weightage, almost about 110 marks. So 110 marks were from the geography section. If you talk about question number 17, it says, what are the socio-economic implications? Most of the students would feel that this is a question of society, but at the end, it asks about development of IT industries in major cities. So it talks about the locational factor of a particular industry and its socio-economic implication. So it's more of a question of human geography. So total, there were 9 questions of 110 marks in the geography section. Now let's move on to the question and answers thing. If you look at the first question, it was a straightforward question. Differentiate the causes of landslides in the Himalayan and the Western Ghat region. So you can directly structure your answer in this format: introduction, causes of landslides, and give some way forward. In the introduction part, you can give the definition of landslide. You can simply write, landslides are nothing but catastrophic events which leads to mass movement of rocks, debris down the slope under the influence of gravity. So, landslides are catastrophic events. So, in just two lines, you can mention the definition of landslide. Landslide are catastrophic events leading to mass movement of rocks and debris down the slope under the influence of gravity. Then you can move on to the causes of landslide. If possible, in the corner of your answer sheet, you can draw a small map showing the Himalayan and the Western Ghat regions. So likewise, you can draw a small map in the corner of your answer sheet. Just shade the Himalayan and the Western Ghat region, which are highly prone to landslides. And in the just besides it, you can write your content. Himalayas and the Western Ghats. Then you can list down the causes of landslides in both the regions one by one. As you all aware that Himalayas are little bit more prone to landslide as compared to the Western Ghats. Now we move on to the main body part of the answer, the causes of landslide. The most important thing is in the Himalayan region, you can segregate on types, rock types. In the Himalayas, the rocks are loose sedimentary rocks. Here we have loose sedimentary rocks in the Himalayas. In case of Western Ghat, we have igneous basaltic rocks. Okay, so the Himalayas are highly vulnerable to landslide because of the loose sedimentary rocks. The second thing you can talk about is the tectonic activities. Tectonic activities. As you all are aware, the Himalayan region has still not achieved the isostatic equilibrium, and it lies on the active margins of the plate boundary between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. That's why, because of high tectonic activity, there are landslides. There are earthquakes occurring on large scale in the Himalayan region. But when we talk about the Western Ghat, it forms the part of the stable part of the Indian plate. That's why it is less vulnerable to landslides due to earthquakes. Then the third thing is the fluvial activities. Or you can, if you go by in sequence, you can talk about the monsoon. The monsoon is the major cause of landslide in both the Himalayan region as well as the Western Ghats. The southwest monsoon brings excessive rainfall over the Indian region. In case when we talk about the Himalayas, both the branches of the monsoon, the Arabian Sea branch and the Bay of Bengal branch, they merge along the slopes of the Himalayas. The Western Ghat branch and the Bay of Bengal branch of southwest monsoon, they merge all along the slopes of the Himalayas, and they bring excessive rainfall all along the southern slopes of Himalayas, and thus is one of the major cause of landslides in the Himalayan region. When we talk about the Western Ghats as well, they stand as a wall in between the monsoon winds of southwest monsoon. As a result, there is excessive precipitation on the western slopes of the Himalayas and there is landslides. Okay. Then if we talk about the fluvial activities, that is river flow, the rivers in the Himalayas, they descend from a very high height, from a at a very steep angle, at a very steep slope. As a result, the erosional activities in the Himalayan region is quite high, due to which the landslides occurs at a large scale in the Himalayan region. Similarly, if we talk about the western slope, the western ghats, the western slopes, at there also the mountains are quite steep, but the rivers that flow, they are quite swift and they cover very less distance. As a result, there are landslides more on the western slopes. But if we talk about the eastern slope, the fluvial activities is quite restricted. It is quite less. As a result, you won't find much landslides on the eastern slopes of the Western Ghat. Then the fifth thing you can write about the freezing and thawing effect, freezing and freezing and freezing and thawing effect in the Himalayan region. This impact is also more can be seen in the Himalayas. As you can see, during the southwest monsoon, due to heavy precipitation, there will be lot of water present in the mountainous region and in the loose soil of the mountains. Immediately after the monsoon season, there will be winter and all the water present will be frozen. After that, again, there will be spring and summer, which will lead to melting of the ice present in the rocks. As a result, the soils on the mountain surface become loose and tend to move down along the slopes of the mountains, which is also a cause of landslides in the Himalayan region. Then the next thing which is responsible for causing landslides is most important thing is the human activities. Human activities is a cause of landslide in both the Western Ghats and the Himalayas. You can give a recent example about the landslide in Chamoli in Uttarakhand, which was mostly due to human activities of construction of hydropower station in those region. Okay, you can also give example about the highways which are being constructed along the slopes of the mountains. So you can see these are the 6 causes. Then the next thing is the way forward. Now, since landslide is a disaster, most of the student might write some or the other conclusion or leave after writing the causes. But since landslide is a disaster, you as a UPSC aspirant, the future administrator, you are supposed to write some way forward. You are supposed to give some solution to this particular disaster. So you should always give a way forward. In way forward, you can write in general terms. You can simply write afforestation should be done, afforestation along the slopes of the mountains. Then, while construction, or while undertaking different infrastructural activities, the slope stability should be studied. Slope stability should be taken into consideration while undertaking infrastructural activities. Then the third thing you can mention, construction of reclining walls. Check the spelling. Reclining wall, you would have seen along the highways, along the mountains, there are walls constructed. So those should be constructed properly. Then you can mention proper environmental impact assessment should be conducted. Then fifth thing you can mention about is the national disaster management guidelines should be followed and implemented thoroughly. So you can give a way forward in this format. As a UPSC aspirant, you should be aware of what steps should must be taken under such type of disaster. So make this as a thumb rule. Whenever in future any question appears in the examination regarding any disaster, always give a way forward. You can just mention in bullet points, no need to write entire sentences as well. Even writing this much will be sufficient. Okay, let's write reclining wall should be constructed, proper environmental impact assessment should be conducted, so NDMA guidelines should be followed. So this will make your answer more complete and help you fetch one extra mark. So now let's move on to the second question. I hope this question, content for this question was clear to all of you. The second question was, despite India being one of the countries of the Gondwana land, its mining contribution is much less to its GDP in percentage. Discuss. So you can structure your answer in the similar fashion: introduction, body, and way forward. This question, it basically is asking regarding the issues with the mining sector in India and why its contribution is less to the Indian GDP. But it has mentioned a comparative thing. It has mentioned comparison with countries of the Gondwana land. India being one of the countries of Gondwana land. So you people should be aware which continents, which countries were part of the Gondwana land in the past. Okay, the South American continent, the African continent, the Indo-Malayan and Australian region. So these were part of the Gondwana land. So in this type of question, you can start with the introduction, giving some comparison. You can start with some factual data in the introduction part, giving comparison with the countries of the Gondwana land. It is quite important to strike and mention about the countries of the Gondwana land. You need not draw the entire map of Gondwana land, but you have to give a little bit of reference to the Gondwana land. So you can start your definition, introduction with, you can start with some factual data like the mining contribution in India, the mining contribution to its GDP is around 2.2 to 2.5%. Some facts you people should always be aware of. For example, the contribution of some important industries to Indian GDP, for example, mining, agriculture, then let's say fisheries, and so on. So you people should mug up some factual data as well. So it is quite important. You'll find these data in your economic survey. So it is important to know these factual data. So the question is asking about comparison with Gondwana land country. So you can just simply write the contribution of mining sector in India, the contribution of mining sector to its GDP is around 2.2 to 2.5%, but as compared to the, which is quite less as compared to the other Gondwana land countries like Brazil. I don't know the contribution of mining sector to Brazil's GDP. Okay, but the question is mentioning the Indian industry contributes much less. Okay, so wherever such type of thing comes, the question itself is saying that it is less in India as compared to other countries of Gondwana. So write any data which is more than 2.2 to 2.5%. You can simply write it is 8% in Brazil. Then you can write about South Africa. Here it is, let's say, 9%. There are a lot of diamonds and all. So you can write 9%. Australia, gold mines and all. So you can write it is 12%. Okay. So write any data. The examiner is not going to go and Google and check whether actually this is the contribution of mining in Brazil or South Africa or anything. Okay. So you can simply write your introduction with factual data. In India, the contribution of mining sector to its GDP is around 2.2 to 2.5%, which is quite less as compared to the other Gondwana land countries like Brazil. You can write in bracket 8%, South Africa 9%, Australia any data which is more, but somewhere it should be relevant. Okay, don't tend to write anything abruptly like 50% and all. Which is around this. It is mainly due to following reasons. So this will give a flow to your answers. Now you go on to write the reasons why the mining contribution of mining in to Indian GDP is less. Then you can mention the different reasons. The first and the foremost reason for less contribution is the administrative policies. Administrative First and the foremost reason is the administrative policies. Now, most of the students will simply write administrative policy and write some general statement. But if you're giving some relevant, objective example, it will make your answer quite, if you give some good example, it will make your answer objective, and it will give a picture to examiners that yes, you are aware of the issues in India as an administrator and not some generalist thing. Okay, so here you can give example of the coal mines. As you all are aware, there was arbitrary allocation of coal mines and then subsequent cancellation by the Supreme Court in 2014, and now the coal mines are again being allocated to the private sector. So the arbitrary allocation, then subsequent cancellation, and now reallocation has affected the overall mining sector. Plus, there are prolonged ongoing case of coal scam, due to which there has been delays in allocation of the mines to the mining industries. As a result of these policies, the overall mining sector contribution has been less. Then the second point you can write about is the land rights and land and forest forest rights. The mineral rich region of India is also the Red Corridor region. The Red Corridor region mostly due to the left wing extremist activities. These activities are because of the loss of land and forest rights. The major mineral dense region or states of India like the Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, these are affected by the left-wing extremist activities because of land and forest right issue. In this thing, you can give example about the Niamgiri Hills. Okay, in Odisha, recently a ban has been put on mining in the Niamgiri Hills due to property right issue. So you can give. See, this decision is good. Ban on mining in Niamgiri Hills, but this is having a domino effect on other mining regions as well, because these regions are populated with indigenous tribal group people. As a result, they want to protect their land and forest right, and thus mining is not that done on that large scale in these areas. So the ban on mining in Niamgiri Hills is good, but there are demand from other tribal sections as well for ban on mining in their areas as well. So overall, these things are impacting the mining sector. Okay, stick to the demand of the question and do not write something philosophical. Okay, the ban on mining in Niamgiri Hills in Odisha, it is having a domino effect in other mining regions of India. As a result, the overall contribution is less. Okay, you can write about red corridor, left wing extremist activities, and the example. Okay, then the third thing you can write about is the environmental pollution. Environmental pollution, the you people are might be aware of Damodar River. If you are not aware, check it in your atlas. The Damodar River is also called as the coal river due to high mining of coal in the Damodar Basin region. The water of this river has turned blackish. As a result, it is also referred to as the coal river, and the mining activities in the Damodar River Basin region is now being decreased so that the river water can be reclaimed properly, which will have a impact on the overall environment. So likewise, you can mention about the different causes. Then the fourth thing you can write about health issues. Health issues on the people engaged in mining activities. The 2018 CAG report has highlighted the loss of lives of people in Rajasthan, which are affected by silicosis. The people in the miners in Rajasthan are affected by silicosis in the regions around the mine. So you can give example about health issue. The people of, as per the 2018 CAG report, there has been high casualty in the mining region due to silicosis. So this will make your answer more objective if you're giving with explaining with relevant example. And as a result, the mining activities have been decreased in these areas. Okay, so overall again impact on the mining contribution. So I am again and again hitting on the demand of the question with every cause. Okay, so you have to take all these things into consideration. Then the last point is the unorganized and illegal mining. This is mostly practiced in the northeastern states. In Meghalaya, you'll find there is rat hole mining. Rat hole mining practiced in the Meghalayan region. NJT has already put a ban on this type of mining activities. So, as a result, overall, it is having an impact on the revenue of the state governments. So, again, and impact on the overall mining sector. Now, since, as I said in the previous question, you are writing a UPSC paper, so you are again supposed to give some way forward, some suggestions to overcome these challenges, to overcome these issues. So you should write Now you can start with whatever issues you have mentioned in the just above. You can simply write a counterpart of this. Now, since if there are health issues, then you can write proper environmental impact assessment again, and social impact assessment should be conducted in the mining region. If there is a land right issue, then timely compensation and rehabilitation of the affected people, timely timely compensation and rehabilitation of the tribal people. Then you can write uh, proper utilization of funds. You can write proper utilization of corporate social responsibility and district mineral funds. The government has brought up an act for setting up some of the profits earned by the mining companies for the welfare of the people around the mining, around the mineral mining regions. Okay, so you can write, give example about district mineral foundation fund and corporate social responsibility funds. So likewise you can give example. Then also you can write about scientific. You can also mention this in issues. Okay, in India, the mining, it is very in an unorganized and unscientific. It is carried on very unorganized and unscientific manner. Okay, now we are started using the information gathered from different satellite like resource sat, but up till now it was done in a very crude manner by mostly in a manual way by analyzing the rocks in different labs and all. But now satellite data is being used, so scientific exploration using satellite imagery. In this way you can give your way forward. This will make your answer more objective and complete. Okay, so that's it. Now let's move on to the third question, that is question number 6 in the examination. What are the environmental implications of the reclamation of water bodies in urban land use? Explain with example. Now read this question quite carefully. Environmental implications of the reclamation of water bodies. Now, when I spoke with few of my friends who gave mains this year, they have interpreted this question in a wrong way. They have written the environmental implications on the water bodies due to changes in urban land use. So you have to read the questions quite carefully in the examination hall. Due to examination pressure, it might happen to you as well, but make a habit of reading the question quite carefully and thoroughly. Okay, the question is asking environmental implications of the reclamation of water bodies into urban land use and explain with example. In such type of questions, you can start your introduction with some factual data. For example, you can give example about the Delhi city. The Delhi government has undertaken an initiative for reclamation of around 200 water bodies and thus turn Delhi into a city of lakes. Okay, so you can give such type of factual introduction, and thus in the second part you can move on to the body, that is the analysis of environmental implications. Now, as I said, the water body has been reclaimed, and now what are its environmental implication on urban land use? The first and the foremost thing is, whenever a water body is reclaimed in urban areas, its basic purpose is to regulate the flood waters. In the recent times, you have seen there have been flash floods in the urban areas like Mumbai, Chennai in India. Okay, so if the water bodies are reclaimed, there will be construction of flood regulation system in and around the urban areas. Okay, there requires proper alignment of the drainage system so that all the water from the urban areas is brought to the this wetland or the reclaimed water body. So there you need flood regulation system. Plus, if you talk about rainwater harvesting, it becomes very difficult in urban areas to store rainwater. So this water body can also help in rainwater harvesting. We just require construction of proper aligned drainage system that will help in collecting all the water from the urban areas and bringing it to this wetland. The second thing you can mention about is the climate. Okay, microclimate especially. A water body in an urban area acts as a cooling effect. Okay, it acts as a cooling effect to the surrounding area and thus helps in mitigating the urban heat island effect. So a water body in urban area, it regulates the microclimate of the surrounding. Now since it is helping in mitigation of urban heat island effect, so there will be less dependence on the cooling system infrastructure and thus changes in the overall changes in the urban land use. In some places, for example at Connaught Place, if you go, you'll find that there are cooling systems at different locations. Okay, so that space won't be required in the urban areas. The third thing you can talk about is the control in control over encroachment activities. Okay, control over encroachment activities, because whenever an wetland dries up in an urban area, immediately that land will be occupied either by the poor section or the rich section of the society. It is occupied, if it is occupied by the poorer section, there will be construction of slums. Okay, if it is occupied by the rich, there will be construction of n number of buildings, concrete buildings, by the several real estate developers. So if an urban wetland is reclaimed, it will act as a control over encroachment and thus have an overall impact on the environment and the land use pattern of the urban area. Then fourth thing you can talk about, promote recreational activities or infrastructure. There will be creation of some recreational infrastructure in and around the wetland. Okay, which can have overall impact on the human as well as the animal life surrounding the wetland. And the fifth thing you can also talk about the urban forestry. Urban forestry, as well as nowadays we hear regularly in news about terrace farming and all. People are practicing some farming on upon their terrace, household terraces. So urban forestry and urban agriculture, thus bringing overall change in the land use pattern of the urban areas. Okay, and having an overall impact on the environment. So likewise you can mention several points in your answer. Then, since the question demands you to write with explain with examples, so while explaining these points, you can mention the examples then and there itself. If you have a good collection of examples which you have collected by reading newspapers and all, some case study or all, or at the end you can simply write case studies and give several examples. Okay, so you can just write a case studies and quote few examples. For example, you can talk about the Kuban Park of Bengaluru, where there is a Jakur Lake which has been reclaimed. Then you can also talk about the Hauskas Lake of Delhi. So likewise, you can give example. You can also write about the sponge cities of China, okay, which are mostly being reclaimed with the purpose of control over floods and pollution as well, water pollution as well as the air pollution. Okay, because these water bodies will act as carbon sink and thus help in mitigating air pollution as well. So in this way, you can write your answer. You can end your answer with the examples and case studies itself. You can give some conclusion regarding significance in 1 or 2 line, or you can simply summarize whatever points you have written as the implications, environmental implication. You can simply summarize and write as a conclusion in your answer. Okay, so that's it with question number 6. Now let's move on to the next question. The question number 7, the fourth question in the paper, mention the global occurrence of volcanic eruptions in 2021 and their impact on regional environment. So here you can structure your answer just like all other: introduction, then regional impact, and a way forward. Okay. In this, you can start with the definition of volcano. You can simply mention volcanoes is an opening in the earth crust through which magma, volcanic ash, and gases, they rise and appear on the surface of the earth. So in one line, you can mention the definition of volcanoes, and then you move on to the body part where you'll be explaining the regional impact. Now, since the question asks, mention the global occurrences of volcanic eruptions. At times, what happen is you might not remember the names of the volcanoes. Okay, in the examination hall, while writing at a speed, you might not be able to recollect. But you all are aware about the Pacific Ring of Fire. Okay, you all are aware about the Pacific Ring of Fire. You always mug up few names, few popular names of the volcanoes along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Whether the volcano has erupted or not, write the names of those volcanoes. Okay, whether it has erupted or not, you simply write the names of those volcanoes, because no one is going to go and check whether it has actually erupted in 2021 or not. So this is again a trick, because the question demands to write with the help of examples. So it is advisable that you write some examples. You can write about Mount Kilau in Hawaii Island. This is a very popular volcano. Okay, it erupts every time now and then. Then you can mention about Sumeru Island, volcano of Indonesia. Okay, then Mount Sicily or Mount Etna near Egypt, Italy. Sorry, Italy. Okay, so these are some of the examples which you can just mention or quote in your answer. Then you can move on to the actual part, that is the regional impact. Okay, you can divide your answer into two sections. You can mention the immediate impact. The volcano has erupted and what will be its immediate impact. And you can also mention the long-term impacts. So you can write immediate impacts. You can write immediate impacts. Now just imagine a volcano has erupted. What will be its immediate impact? Immediate impact, you can say there will be occurrence of earthquake, earthquakes and tsunamis. For example, Tongo volcano erupted last month, or I think in this month itself, and a massive tsunami was generated. It does had an impact. It submerged the entire, almost an entire Tongo island. So the immediate impact was submergence of island. It can also be a long-term impact as well, but immediate impact was the submergence of this thing. Then large amount of volcanic ash or volcanic material is erupted into space. Volcanic ash, then rocks, then magma coming out, lava. Once it is on the surface, it is called as lava. Okay. Then immediate eruption of ash, rocks, and lava will be there on the surface of the earth. These ash rocks, when they get mixed up with the rainwater, they form a sludge, a cement like sludge called as leher, called as leher. It is called as leher in Indonesia. It has a very huge impact on the infrastructure of the environment around, infrastructure as well as human and the animal life. Okay, because it moves at a very rapid speed, since it is a combination of all the volcanic material along with the rainwater. So that makes it more fluid and it flows at a great speed along the slope of the mountains, thus destroying all the things in between its way. Then you can talk about there will be raising of means forest fires, immediate impact, forest fires. Then you can also write about the fourth thing, volcanic gases. So due to volcanic eruption, volcanic gases like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide, etc., will be erupted in the atmosphere. This may lead to suffocation. The inhaling of these gases may lead to suffocation of both human as well as animal life, and thus ultimately leading to mortality. Okay. Then the fifth thing you can write about in the immediate impact is the agriculture aspect. Okay. Since it mentions environment, regional environment, try to cover all the aspects. Okay. It will lead to destruction of standing crops, and may lead to a situation of famine. Okay. Then sixth thing you can talk about is the climate. This you can talk more of about in the long term impact, because climate, it affects the climate after some time. Let's say after the volcano has erupted, it begins to cool the climate after a period of around 1 month or so. What happens due to volcanic eruption? Due to volcanic eruption, large amount of volcanic gases and debris, rock debris, are released into the atmosphere. They reach a very high height, almost reaching about just below the stratosphere, near the stratosphere. These volcanic gases and material, they tend to get accumulated in the stratospheric layer, somewhere around 15-16 kilometer height. This waste material, this ash and rock debris, they block the incoming UV rays, they block the incoming solar radiation. As a result, it leads to cooling of the Earth's surface after a certain period of time. A very good example about this is Mount Tamboro. Okay, the Mount Tamboro of Indonesia. Right here. Mount Tamboro of Indonesia. It erupted in 1815, and over a period of time, it significantly cooled the global climate by almost around 3 degrees Celsius. So, the volcanic eruptions can help in controlling global warming. Okay, so you can mention all these aspects in the, you can try to mention climate, cooling of the climate in long term impact. There are other long term impacts as well. I'll write B, long term impact. Okay, first you can mention about the climate. The second aspect, you can mention about uh, the formation of islands. Formation of island, as you all are aware, the Hawaii Islands are nothing but volcanic islands. They are formed due to prolonged volcanic eruption and the accumulation of the volcanic material over a period of time. So, formation of island, arcs and chains. Example, give example, a Hawaii Island. Okay, then we have already talked about the climate aspect. Uh, you can also mention because of the tsunamis which occur due to the volcanic eruption, over a period of time, that island probably might get submerged completely. Okay, so may lead to not just formation but also submergence of islands. So this might also happen. So overall, you can segregate your answer in short term and long term impact on the regional environment. So I just forgot to mention one more point you can write. As you all know, the volcanic soil, the volcanic ash is rich in nutrient content. So once the lava which has spread over the land surface over a certain period of time, it is, since it is very rich in nutrient content, it can promote agricultural activities. So promote agricultural activities due to rich, nutrient rich lava soil, promote agricultural activities due to nutrient rich lava soil. Okay, so you can write these points in your answer. Now, since, as the rule says, as I said, that it is a disaster, volcanic eruption is a disaster, and you should mention some way forward, but it might happen that you might find some you might be short of time in writing your answer. So you can simply write, because giving way forward for volcanic eruption is quite difficult. It is a catastrophic event, and mentioning some mitigation measures becomes quite difficult when it comes to volcanic eruption. But still, we can talk about early warning system. For example, so we already have tsunami early warning system. As soon as the volcano, Tongo volcano erupted, immediately the tsunami warning was issued. to all the Pacific islands as well as countries around the Pacific, and thus there was a significant saving of life, precious life. Okay, then you can talk about some infrastructural activities. You can talk about regulating the lava floods. Okay, at some places the volcano erupts at a very slow speed, and the magma which is poured on the surface, the lava moves at a very slow rate. So such slow moving lava, the direction of the slow moving lava can be regulated by creating proper infrastructure. Okay, so you can write regulating lava floods regulating lava floods through construction of lava drains, lava drainage system. Okay, so likewise you can give some way forward. Okay, to overall reduce the impact of lava volcanic eruption on the human as well as the animal life. So that's it with the question. Then moving on to the question number 8. Question number 8, it talks about why is India considered as a subcontinent? Elaborate your answer. Now this is a very straightforward question, so I won't be discussing this question in detail, okay? Because you all are aware why is India considered as a subcontinent. You can draw a map of India and its neighboring countries, the overall Indian subcontinent. You can mention the geographical extent of the Indian subcontinent as your introduction. In your body part, you can write about the physical diversity, the human diversity of the Indian subcontinent. And because of all these reasons, India is considered as a subcontinent. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question. Question number 14. This was a 15-mark question. Briefly mention the alignment of major mountain ranges of the world and explain their impact on local weather conditions with examples. In this question, it is quite important that you are aware of the alignment of major mountain ranges of the world. Okay, it is important that you draw the map, the world map of the major mountain ranges, or else what you can do is you can draw map of one mountain range and explain its impact on the local weather conditions accordingly. Okay, so you can structure your answer in this form. You can give introduction. In introduction, you can mention in 2 to 3 lines what you mean by mountain ranges. Mountain ranges are a chain or a group of mountains close together formed in a series of ridges characterized by their long and narrow extension. The mountain ranges, major mountain ranges are long mountain ranges, okay? But when you look at their width, they are quite narrow, okay? Then you can move on to the map. You can draw the world map or you can draw one single map, okay, and explain accordingly. You can start your answer with explaining the initially the north south aligned mountains. So you can write about the north south aligned mountains, the Rockies, we have Andes, then the Great Dividing Range. Okay, you can give, then there is Ural Mountains as well. You can write these four major mountain ranges, north-south extending mountain ranges, and explain their impacts on local environment one by one. For example, if we start with the Rocky Mountains, the planetary westerly winds, they blow in this direction, and the Rocky Mountain act as a barrier to these westerly winds. As a result, there will be precipitation on the western slopes of the Rocky Mountains, whereas on the leeward side, it will be a rain shadow, dry region. Okay, so the Rocky Mountain act as a barrier for the westerly winds and thus form a rain shadow region on the eastern sides of the American plains. Okay, in the month of winters, these winds they pour down precipitation on the western side, and then they become dry and warm. As a result, they descend the slope and melt all the snow in the northern plains of America. This snow covered region, it gets melted because of the warm and dry winds. Okay, these winds are locally known as Chinook. They are locally known as Chinook winds in the northern plains, also known as the snow eater, because it immediately melts the snow as soon as these winds come in. Okay, then if you go back to the map, you'll find that there is there is convergence of cold winds from the Arctic region. There is convergence of cold winds from the Arctic region and warm winds from the southern region in the northern plains of America. Because of the rocky alignment of the Rocky Mountain, these winds converge over the northern plains of America, and as a result of these contrasting air masses, there is formation of temperate cyclones on the land surface. Okay, it is the Rocky Mountains are also responsible for the formation of tornadoes in the northern plains of America. Similar to the Chinook winds in the North America, we have Zonda in Southern America. In South America, the local winds that lead to melting of snow, in especially in Argentina, it is called as the Zonda. It has similar impact. Okay. Then, if you talk about the next north-south aligned mountain, you can mention about the Great Dividing Range of Australia. Okay. The eastern slopes of these mountains, they are the region of high level of forest fires. You would have heard in news on a regular basis. Okay, it is basically because the westerly winds that blow towards the Great Dividing Range, okay, they are dry when they descend the eastern slopes of the Great Dividing Range, and as a result, it is one of the major cause of the forest fires. Then, in the month of winters in southern hemisphere, in the month of winters in southern hemisphere, as the ITCZ shifts northward, then the polar winds blow in this direction. Okay, polar wind blows in this direction, and thus the major part of the Australia is saved from the cold blasts of the polar cold winds. Okay, then you can talk about the Ural Mountains. Ural Mountains in the Central Asia. Okay, if we talk about Ural Mountains, the eastern side of the Ural Mountains in the month of winters in northern hemisphere is quite harsh. Okay, as compared to the western part. The this region of Europe, this region of Europe experience comparatively less harsh winters as compared to the eastern part of the Ural Mountains. It is basically because of the desiccating effect from the winds blowing from the Atlantic Ocean. These winds are blocked by the Ural Mountains. As a result, the winters are less harsh. Similarly, the precipitation in the west part, western part of the Ural Mountains is much more than the eastern part. Okay, so these are the impacts on the local environment of the north-south extending mountain ranges. Then you can explain about the impact of east-west extending mountain ranges. You can talk about Himalayas, the Alps. Okay, Himalayas, as you already know, it is the major reason for the monsoon type of climate in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, the second thing, the Himalayas block the cold winds coming from the northern part of our planet. Okay, as a result, you can see the climate in the Indian mainland of India, it is quite warm compared to the other regions lying along the same this latitudes. Okay, then the third thing which Himalayas have impact is the westerly jet streams. And these westerly jet streams, they bring in precipitation in the winter months in the northern regions of India. So it is basically because of the Himalayas that the westerly jet streams are pushed towards the southern slopes of the Himalayas and thus bring in precipitation in the northern belt, okay, which is suitable for the cultivation of wheat. Then you can talk about the Alps mountain. When we talk about the Alps are the major extensive mountains in the Europe. It divides the European climate into wet weather climate north of the Alps and dry weather climate south of the Alps. It is mostly because of the orographic rainfall on the northern slopes of the Alps. Okay, and the second thing, just like the Himalayas, the Alps block the harsh cold winds blowing from the Arctic region. Okay. As a result, we have very comparatively a fair weather in the Mediterranean region, fair weather with clear blue skies in the months of winter in the Mediterranean region. As a result, the Mediterranean region has also developed as a tourist destination in the winter months. Okay, so these are the major impacts on the local environment of the major mountain ranges. Also, one thing, the Himalayas and the Alps, because of their east west extension, as they are blocking the cold winds and it is not allowing convergence of the cold and the warm air masses, there is no formation of temperate cyclones on the land area. Okay, because of their east west extension, Himalayas and the Alps, there is no formation of temperate cyclones on the land areas. Whereas when we talk about the Rockies, the Andes, you might find there are occurrences, there are formation of temperate cyclones on the land surface. So this is with the this is all with the question number 14 of the exam regarding alignment of the major mountain ranges. You can simply give some conclusion. Okay, the mountain ranges, you can conclude or you can summarize whatever you have written. The mountain ranges have a significant impact on the temperature, precipitation, okay, and thus the overall geographical environment, and thus help in changing the overall human geography of the region. Okay, human geography, crop cultivation, okay, then the dressing and all. Okay, it has significant impact on all those aspects. Now let's move on to the next question, that is, how do the melting of Arctic ice and glaciers of Antarctica differently affect the weather patterns and human activities on the earth? Explain. Okay, so just now we concluded regarding the impact of mountain ranges on weather pattern and human activities. So the next question is on the similar line. Okay. So let's start with this question. The Arctic and the Antarctic are completely different areas. Okay, when we talk about the Arctic, in this, almost the entire ice present in the Arctic region is floating on the water surface. Okay, almost all the ice. But when we talk about the Antarctic, here the entire landmass is covered with thick layers of ice. Okay, there are some glaciers present in the water mass around Antarctic, around its periphery, but overall the Antarctic is a major landmass covered with ice. As compared to Arctic, in this the entire almost the entire ice is floating on the water surface, and thus they both have different impact on the weather pattern and the human activities. If we talk about the Arctic region first, okay, in the main body, the Arctic region is warming at a very fast rate, as the most of the ice is floating on the water surface. As soon as the ice melts, then the dark dark ocean water is exposed to the your sun's radiation. As a result, the ocean water surface, it absorbs more and more heat now. Initially, it was covered with ice due to albedo effect. The solar radiation was getting reflected back. Now, since the ice has melted, the water is absorbing more and more heat, and due to which this region is a region which is highly impacted because of global warming. Now let's see the major impact because of this. The first thing you can write is about the Atlantic Meridional Ocean circulation. Okay, as you are aware, let's say this is North America, this is South America, here we have Europe and Africa, this is the Atlantic Ocean. Now, these are the surface current, the Gulf Stream. Okay, then after reaching the cold waters, what happens? This Gulf Stream, which is a surface current, it descends and it flows along the surface of the ocean. Okay, the Atlantic meridional circulation. Now, since after reaching a certain latitude, this warm surface ocean current, it cools because of the cold waters from the Arctic region. It becomes heavy and dense, due to which it sinks below the surface of the water. Now, because the temperature in the Arctic region is high, this contrast between the two warm and the cold currents has decreased significantly. As a result, this Atlantic meridional ocean circulation is slowing down. Okay, so the first impact on the climate you can mention is on the environment, you can mention about the slowing down of the this Atlantic meridional ocean circulation, and thus the overall impact on the precipitation in the regions around it. Okay, then you would have heard about the Arctic butterfly effect. This was in news in the month of October. Arctic butterfly effect. Because of this effect, there was excessive precipitation in the month of October in the southern peninsular region of India. Arctic butterfly effect. Because of this, there was heavy precipitation in the month of October, which is the month of retreating monsoon. Okay, compared to the other years, this time there was lot of precipitation in the peninsular region of India. Then the third thing, polar jet stream. The main driving force for the polar jet stream is the temperature gradient between the northern polar region and the southern region. The more the temperature gradient, the more the difference between the warm and the north cold, the faster the will be the movement of the jet stream. But because of the weakening, because of the less temperature contrast between the north and the south, these jet stream, they tend to meander. As a result, when they are moving towards the south, as a result, when they are moving towards the south, they bring a cold air blast in the southern regions. And while they are moving from the southern to the northern polar region, they carry warm air from the south. As a result, there will be again a warming in the northern polar region. Okay, so because of the less temperature gradient between the north Arctic region and the southern region, there has been changing in the pattern of the movement of the jet stream. They now meander to a great extent. Okay, now since the ice in the Arctic region is melting at a great speed, it has opened up the area for navigation. The question asks about human activities as well, impact on human activities. So it has opened up the area for navigation of the sea lanes. Okay, so there will be huge economic impacts. Okay, it will it will be beneficial for economic activities, but if when you talk about the environmental thing, it is a it is a drawback. Okay, then the second part you can move on to is the impact of the Antarctic. As I said earlier, the Antarctic region is mostly a huge landmass covered with ice. Okay, so the melting of the ice in the Arctic region is not having that much significant impact on the sea level. Okay, because it is already floating on the water surface. But when we talk about the Antarctic region, these the glaciers of the Antarctic region are quite huge. Okay, they store lot of water, and as a result of their melting, there will be sure rise in the sea level. If there is a rise in the sea level, it will have a significant impact on the coastal regions all around the world. And you might be aware that most of the major economic hubs of the world, for example, New York, then Hong Kong, Mumbai, etc., London, they all are located along the coast. Okay, so there will be huge impact on the economic activities as well as the human life. Then if we talk about the impact on the climate because of melting of glaciers in the Antarctic region, then there has been a significant increase the Antarctic circumpolar current. This is the strongest ocean current. It flows from the surface of the ocean right up till the ocean floor. Okay, the width of this ocean current is quite huge. This ocean current is the major cause of Antarctic region being a frozen landmass because it blocks all the warm waters coming from the northern part in the southern hemisphere. Okay, so if there is a change in the pattern of this circumpolar current, ultimately because of the global warming, ultimately it will lead to faster melting of the glaciers along the periphery in the Antarctic region. Okay, so these are the impacts on the environment and the human activities because of the global warming and melting of the Antarctic glaciers. One thing you can write about the sea level rise, and the second, the changing pattern of the Antarctic circumpolar current. Okay, these are the major known reasons of melting of the uh, glaciers in the Antarctic region. Okay, then you can give some way forward to your answer, how you can help, how this can be mitigated, how the impact of global warming and melting of the Arctic ice and the glaciers can be mitigated. Okay, some steps. You can quote some summits, okay, some conventions on the environment, okay, the Kigali Agreement, which has been brought in to control hydrofluorocarbons and all. Okay, so you can accordingly conclude your answer in a better way. Now let's move on to the next question, the 16th question in your answer sheet. Discuss the multidimensional implication of uneven distribution of mineral oil in the world. Okay, now here also it is important that you know the major regions of the world where mineral oil is found. You draw the map, the world map, okay, and accordingly you can give the multidimensional implications. There are both some positive as well as negative implications. Okay, now let's discuss this in detail. So in this question, you can start your introduction with some factual information like the mineral oil is the major source of energy supply in the world. Almost more than 30% of the energy need of the world comes from mineral oil. So with this factual information, you can start your introduction. Then you can go on to draw the map, the world map showing the distribution of major oil reserves of the world. Okay, the regions of major known oil reserves of the world. Okay, then you can move on to the multidimensional impacts. In the multidimensional impacts, since it is talking about multidimensional, so mention both the positive and the negative implications. Okay, as you can see over here, most of the oil reserves of the world in the Siberian region, the Arabian region, then the Venezuela region, then the northern Canadian region, some part of Alaska. So these all these regions have very harsh climate. Okay, they have very harsh climate, and but since oil is a necessity for the major economic activities of the world, so they will help in boosting economic activities in these harsh region. Economic activities, the positive implications you can mention, boost economic activities. Okay, for example, Qatar, as you all know, it has one of the highest per capita income. Then second thing you can mention about regional development. UAE, you all are aware of. Okay, it has become the one of the major hub of economic services of the world. Okay, so it will help in boosting regional development, help in boosting economic activities, raising standard of living of the people. Okay. Then the third thing you can talk about, helps in uh, tackling migration. Okay. Providing opportunities for the people, for the migrants. For example, the Arabian region, the Arabian Peninsular region, which is rich in oil reserves, it helps in sustaining most major migrants from the Indian subcontinent. Okay, so help in sustaining migrants, and thus the human population, sustaining human population. So these are some of the positive implications of the distribution of oil reserves. Then there are some negative implications. Okay. The negative implications, you can talk about conflicts and wars, conflicts and war. For example, the Gulf War, the attack of Iraq on Kuwait, it was mostly because of the mineral oil reserves. Okay. Then the second thing you can talk about is the energy security. Energy security, since oil is a necessity for almost all the economies of the world. You can talk about example about India. Okay, as soon as the prices of oil in the Gulf region, as soon as the supply of oil from the Gulf region, it declines immediately, the prices of all the things in India rises up. It also leads to energy crisis in India. Okay, plus it will, also has a negative impact on the overall expenditures from the other regions, mostly the import dependent regions of the world. For example, again, you can talk about India. Okay, in India, we spend almost around more than $80 billion on the import of crude oil from different countries. Okay, so this is more than the defense budget of India. Okay, so then the fourth negative, you can talk about the environmental pollution. Environmental pollution, often we hear about oil leakages in and around the major oil reserves around the world. Okay, last year there was a huge oil leak in the Siberian region. Okay, recently last week there was an oil leak in around South America, around Peru. Okay, so these are some of the negative implications of the multidimensional implications of the oil reserves. Okay, then you can conclude your answer suggesting some way forward. Again, way forward, you can talk about the changes or movement towards renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources, the shift towards renewable energy sources, then the shift towards the lithium ion economy. Nowadays, we often hear of electric vehicles, electric machineries, and all. Then you can talk about generation of waste to energy plants. So all these steps or suggestions are nothing but the opposite of the negative implications we have just mentioned just now. Okay, so you can give some suggestions in this fashion. giving a type of a way forward to your answer that will help overcome the negative implications of the distribution of oil reserves across the globe. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. The next question was, what are the socio-economic implications arising out of the development of IT industries in the major cities of India? Okay, in just brief 2 to 3 line, you can talk about the significance of IT industries in the introduction part and how the IT industries is driving the fourth industrial revolution in the world. Okay, then you can go on to mention the distribution of IT industries in India. You can draw a map. As you can see over here, the major IT industries in India are located in the major metropolitan regions of India, the Delhi NCR, Gurgaon, Noida. Then in Pune we have then Bengaluru. Okay, so these are some of the major IT industries in India. Then the question is asking about the socio-economic implications. Okay, the socio-economic implications arising out of this uneven distribution of IT industries in India. So again, you can write the positive as well as the negative implications. In the positive implications, you can write following points. In the positive implication, you can write it will help in integration of these major cities with the world economy, integration with the world economy, integration with world economy. As you all are aware that the Indian government has undertaken an initiative of smart cities, which we are building with the help of different foreign governments. Okay, so it is nothing but integration of the world economy because of the IT industry, because of the digital industry. Then the second thing you can talk about is the e-governance. The e-governance in these major cities will be at a very high level. The presence of e-governance will be high. Okay, there will be e-governance in health sector, then education sector. So all the government related services can be provided at a very fast pace in these major hubs. Then you can also talk about with the digital economy, there is presence of, there is increase in financial inclusion, Jandan Aadhar mobile. Okay, it has become possible because of the IT industry. The financial inclusion in the major hubs, you can find that it is quite high. Okay, then the employment activities and its multiplier effect, employment employment activities and its multiplier effect in the major IT hubs of India is quite high. Okay, so these are some of the positive implications of the presence of IT industries in the major hubs of India. Also, you can also mention about the investments. Okay, investments in these major regions is also high, as thus leading to overall high level of economic activity in these selected IT hubs of India. Then in the negative part, because of this uneven distribution of IT industry, it has led to an imbalance in regional development, imbalance in regional development. Okay, because of this imbalance in regional development, you can find a rural urban divide has been created in India. There is low level of digital literacy. There is low level of governance, e-governance in the rural areas in the other regions of the India as compared to these IT hubs. There is low level of financial inclusion as well, low level of financial literacy. As a result of this, a poor and rich divide, a kind of poor rich divide has created in the IT hubs and the other parts of the India. So these are some of the negative implications. Then you can also talk about employment in other regions. The employment opportunities in other regions are limited. As a result, most of the other parts are still dependent on the agricultural activities. Okay. Then the IT hubs, they promote gig economy, which lacks in the other regions, other parts. So the overall, there is less opportunities in the other parts of India as compared to the IT hubs of India. Okay. Then you can also talk about the internet security. Because of low digital literacy in the other regions of India, other than the IT hubs, there is low level of digital literacy, there is low level of internet security. As a result, the people are scared of using digital services. Okay, they either lack knowledge, or they don't know how to use, or they just simply don't want to use because of the fear that they might lose their money, or they might lose some of their valuable information. Okay, so likewise you can mention all the positive and the negative implications. Okay, the social as well as the economic, it covers a mixture of both the social as well as the economic implications of the uneven distribution of IT industries in India. Then you can conclude your answer with some relevant way forward, how you can minimize the divide the between the IT hubs and the non-IT hubs. Okay, and give a relevant way forward. Okay, for example, Digital India Mission, Digital Saksharta Abhiyan. So these Digital India schemes for minimizing the rural urban divide in terms of IT. Then you can also talk about the production linked incentive schemes is being provided by the government to bring about development of such type of industries in the other regions as well. Okay, and thus help in minimize the rural urban divide or the regional divide. Okay, so in this way you can make utilization of various schemes in your answers. In the previous questions, I forgot to mention about the importance of mentioning these schemes in your answer, especially in way forward or in conclusion. You have to include some of the other government schemes. Okay, that will make your answer look more like written by an UPSC aspirant. Okay, for administrative services of the future. Okay, so make use of them. You are going to read about multiple schemes for your prelims. Try to make a note of some important schemes. So likewise, we have covered all the geography questions in the mains 2021. I hope this was beneficial for you. These answers were the information that I provided was from my approach. You might have your own approach, but I have tried to cover all the aspects of the question. I've tried to cover the demand of the questions, okay, as in line with the UPSC questions. So this approach is also quite good. The content that I've provided is a good content. So try to inculcate such type of answer writings, such type of content in your answers whenever you're going to practice. That will help you in making your answer objective, making your answer better as compared to the others. So that's it from my end. All the best for the upcoming prelims. And still, there are 3.5 months. You can practice answer writing at least one answer every day. Try to allocate at least 20 minutes for writing one answer every day. At least you can continue this at least till the month of March. Okay, then in the last 2 months, you can focus only and only on your prelims thing. Apart from this, we also have at Guidance IAS, we also have our prelims test series going on. Okay, the cost of that test series is only 499. In that, 12 tests will be provided to you. All the tests are focused mostly on the static part of the syllabus. Okay, we have already covered our first history test and we have received a good response, especially about the quality of the questions. Okay, they are right from the static books. As I have said earlier in my prelims video, that 60% of the question come from the prelims. In the prelim section, 60% come from the static part of your syllabus. So we have focused only and only on those 60%. We also are covering current affairs 2 tests, which will be focused on the India yearbook and the Yojana Kurukshetra magazines only, and not some any irrelevant current affair data. Okay, so all the best for your upcoming prelims. That's it from my end, and thank you for giving your time in listening to the entire lecture. Okay, the entire session. I hope this was fruitful for you, and I hope you'll apply all the things that you have learned in this session in your answer writing. Okay, thank you.